Everyone has the right to die with dignity on their own terms. We are born, live our lives, and then die. It's called the cycle of life, and every individual, without exception, experiences it. Some people are here for a very brief time. Others stay for many years. But regardless of the length of our journey, it always ends the same way. We die. Welcome to episode number 1 of the End of Life Journey series. The topics that will be covered in this session are my reasons for creating this series. Hello, my name is Leanna. Welcome to this series of videos in which I intend to share information about the end-of-life journey here in Canada. The information I will share is for educational purposes only. My goal is to engage Canadians in a conversation about the often challenging topic of death. Most people want to avoid this topic at all costs. However, as we are all going to die, I think it's important that we have a very open, candid discussion about our options as we make the end-of-life journey towards the transition we call death. I do not endorse any specific course of action. I'm simply going to present the facts so that you can make informed decisions about what is the most appropriate path for you. The choice is yours alone. I encourage you to use this information to do further investigations into circumstances and services in your area, because healthcare is a provincial and territorial responsibility, and each is unique. These videos are meant to be a starting place to help you map out your journey and deal with any roadblocks you may encounter along the way. You may be wondering what my area of expertise is. It's very simple, really. I have lived experience. I've supported a number of people as they made their end-of-life journey, and now I'm in the process of making that journey myself. I'm not a member of any medical community. I'm not offering professional advice. I'm here as an ordinary person going down life's path, exploring the many choices I face every day that impact my current quality of life and ultimately my death. I'm receiving palliative care for my many medical issues, which are, I'm told, degenerative and irremediable. What that really means is that my medical issues are slowly getting worse and they'll never get any better, and that there's very little they can do to help me other than managing my constant chronic pain. I'm currently recovering from colon cancer surgery and have been informed that my body is too fragile to receive any further treatment, such as chemotherapy. Last month, I was also informed that I have type 2 diabetes. I'm living the end-of-life experience that I'm going to be talking about. Initially, I was motivated to do this out of respect for the final request of my late husband, Paul Couvrette. Moments before his death, he asked me and his doctor to educate others about their end-of-life choices. One way he suggested I do that was by writing a book about our personal lived experiences. I did write the book, which is called Maid Musings, A Widow's Reflections. And I'll tell you more about that later in the video. Over the past 7 years, many people have told me their stories, and in some cases, I have even participated in their journey. Knowing I have shared my late husband's experiences, they asked me that I share their history too. Now, facing my own end-of-life journey, I have decided to create this series of videos in hope that it will trigger conversations all across the country about death and the process of dying. It is my hope that armed with information, people will be able to make the informed decisions that will best reflect their personal needs and wishes. The information I'm going to share is based on the testimony I presented to the AMAD Committee of the Federal Senate in November 22, 2022 in Ottawa. If you're interested in reading the transcript of this testimony, I will leave it as a link at the end of the program, along with information on how to get a copy of my book. Dr. Kutcher and I spoke to the doctors at the Prince County Hospital in Summerside. From there, printed media, television, and radio all asked me to share our story. Paul's death was unique in that it was the first medically assisted death in the province of Prince Edward Island. Bill C-14 had been enacted about 10 months earlier, and medically assisted deaths, often referred to as MAID for the medical term assistance in dying, were still a new end-of-life choice. As word got out through the media, many people reached out to me from all over Canada and other parts of the world, asking me to share my lived experience. It's been about 7 years since then, and I've been privileged to help many other people all over the world die with dignity on their own terms. During that time, a number have asked me to share their stories, which I will do during the course of the following videos. I know from personal experience that when a person receives a catastrophic medical diagnosis, it can be earth-shattering. By catastrophic, I mean something that is so horrible, it's difficult to imagine, let alone accept. Unfortunately, I've experienced more than one. When that happens, some people just can't cope with the idea of dealing with the results of the diagnosis. I remember how devastated my late husband Paul was. Like many people, Paul's first reaction was to commit suicide. Each individual is unique. They are molded by their genetics, family background, community, religious and spiritual beliefs, the opinions of friends, even the work they choose. Many religions and cultures reject suicide as the ultimate immoral act and completely forbid it. Regardless, in Canada, in 1972, the federal government chose to decriminalize suicide. As a result, it is no longer a criminal act to commit suicide in this country, although it is a crime to counsel or help anyone kill themselves. It is legally an individual's right to end their life. My body, my life, my choice. Although this is a difficult subject, it is one that I feel needs to be addressed. I want to go on record here and now by saying that I do not encourage anyone under any circumstances to commit suicide. However, having said that, I have seen and experienced it firsthand. I had a family member who chose suicide during an exceptionally difficult period in their professional life. Even with extensive awareness, sympathy, sensitivity, and professional support, they still chose to take their own life. They saw this as their only option to escape their situation. Naturally, it had tragic repercussions for all those left behind. I too have struggled with suicidal thoughts. Mine were brought on by chronic pain. I felt like I was a burden to those I loved, and that with no end in sight to the terrible constant pain I knew I would live with every moment for the rest of my life, the only solution was to kill myself. I spent an entire evening in the darkness, cradling a bottle of scotch and a bottle of prescription drugs, which the doctor had warned me could take my life if I consumed them with alcohol. In a mental state of self-loathing and pity, I cried, heaving great sobs as I tried to get up the courage to end my life. After what seemed like endless hours, my will to survive was stronger than my need to end my suffering. 25 years later, I still live in constant, excruciating pain every minute of every day. But I have found ways to cope with my feelings, although from time to time, they still haunt me to this day. Everyone's life will end sooner or later. There are no exceptions. As you are making your end-of-life journey, it's important that you have all the facts so you can make an informed decision. During this series of videos, I'm going to attempt to show you some of the options. Yes, like my late husband, when faced with a devastating diagnosis, your mind may instantly jump to suicide as a quick and easy solution. I understand that. However, I ask that you please take the time to see what other choices you may have so that you can choose the one that's best for you, the one that best suits your personal beliefs and situation, the one that will allow you to die with dignity on your own terms. This is your life, your body, your death. As you transition to whatever comes after this life, let it be your informed decision that guides your path. When I testified before the Senate committee, I asked those present to be guided by my husband's philosophy. He was a psychotherapist in private practice. He advocated taking a 5-degree shift in perspective when facing a challenging situation. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Not every member of the medical community is at liberty or even inclined to share all the information you may need to know to make an informed decision about your end-of-life journey. However, I encourage you to communicate not only with your family and friends, but also your medical caregivers before you decide what's best for you. You may have viewed death from a specific perspective all your life because that was the way you were raised or what you came to believe over time. I'm asking you to make that 5-degree shift and look at your end-of-life experience from a different perspective through new eyes. Once you have gathered all the facts, then hopefully you will be in a position to make the decision that best meets your needs. If you're not, then don't hesitate to ask for advice or help. That's what I've been doing as I battle yet one more devastating diagnosis: cancer and now diabetes. In November of 2022, I was invited to testify before the Federal Senate committee reviewing the current legislation regarding medically assisted deaths because I'm physically handicapped. And they wanted to hear my opinion as to whether or not physically disabled people should be allowed to access MAID. I had been advocating for expansion of the MAID law since my husband's death in 2017. I was given the honor and privilege of representing and speaking on behalf of our collective community of those with lived experience regarding MAID. At this point, please allow me to provide you some background information as to how I became an advocate in these end-of-life journey issues. This wasn't something I ever aspired to do. It just slowly evolved over time. My late husband was facing a terminal diagnosis, and as a result of his cancer, it had metastatized to his brain and several other parts of his body from the original small tumor in his lungs. His symptoms were being managed by drugs, but his doctor had warned him that when he reached a point where the drugs would no longer work, he would potentially lose the ability to make a conscious decision and sign the papers necessary to allow him to have a medically assisted death. He had already been assessed by 2 doctors and approved for the procedure, but he knew that if he were to lose cognizance, the ability to be of sound mind and know what he was doing, before the procedure, he would be denied the ability to die with dignity on his own terms. So he chose to have the MAID procedure done early in order to avoid such a possibility. Fortunately, that part of the law has been changed since then, and if a person has been assessed and approved and they lose their abilities to sign the papers themselves, the procedure can still go ahead as they wished. However, at that time, in May of 2017, he was still required to sign giving consent right before the medical procedure could be performed. Our story has been retold many times in the media in the intervening years. Paul always said that MAID wouldn't be for everyone, but he wanted them to know they had choices. I will devote an entire episode to MAID later in the series. In the meantime, I want to explore the other options available. As I explained to the Senate committee, the medical community has been helping people die with dignity for as long as we can remember. Although MAID is currently under debate, It is the most recent medical technique available due to the change in the criminal code regarding suicide. However, we must remember that the medical community has many other ways in which they can help patients die with dignity on their own terms. They've been doing it for decades, if not centuries. I'm sure you personally know of some such situations. Things such as the specific use of advanced planning documents, DNRs, PCAs, assisted VSE and VSED, palliative coma and sedation, to mention but a few. I'm sure there are some of those terms that you've never heard of before and know nothing about. It is my intention to devote a video to each of those topics. I hope that the information I share will help make informed decisions about what's best for you as you transition from this life to whatever comes next. I will not endorse or promote any specific approach to death. That's up to you, and you alone. Once, a man called into a radio talk show where I was a guest, suggesting that only God had the right to say when and where we should die. My reply was simple. Aren't we fortunate to live in Canada, a country that respects each person's right to choose whatever is best for them based on their own beliefs? I feel truly privileged to live in a country that allows me the right to die with dignity on my own terms in the manner that best meets my needs and beliefs. Once again, my body, my life, my choice. The book I wrote at my late husband's request is called Maid Musings, A Widow's Reflections, and is available through blurb.ca. Look for a link at the end of this video. My book chronicles Paul's end-of-life journey and what we experienced as a couple. It's a collection of short stories, poetry, and personal reflections that happened during this time. It's extremely personal and intimate. I wrote it that way so that the reader could understand that we're real people and these are real events that we experience together. Because this is a series of videos, you may want to subscribe so that you have access to all of them. I anticipate there will be about 5, in addition to a brief introductory video, making the series 6 in total. They will all be released at once and will vary in length depending on the subject matter. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope the information I have provided will help you map out an end-of-life journey that meets your unique needs. All the links I have mentioned in the video will be in the description down below. Please like and subscribe to this end-of-life video series if you have found it helpful. Make sure to share this with others so we can truly engage Canadians in this conversation about death and dying with dignity on our own terms.